So you do have David's stone. Uncle, if I have lied to a bishop...
No. Any lie is not upon you, Pedro. It's on us. You cannot lie about something that you don't even know anything about.
And this is the question in John's new short story, Child of the Stone.
Stone. Yeah, okay, so this is the question in that short story. And thanks for joining us in this special live stream, the fourth of only 5 that we will be doing this year, a book launch. Today, you can now pre-order the science fantasy short story, Child of the Stone. I am John Newton, science fiction author, and I'm joined by...
Eric from your brother in Christ. Let's be honest, this is not the worst thing I have dressed up as for a video.
I don't know. I'm still going to call you brother because I think that kind of works out pretty well.
Brother in Christ, brother, he works.
You can now download a free copy of this short story by clicking on the link in the description of this video and signing up for my newsletter. But first, an introduction to the story. When an old peasant in medieval Spain unearths an ancient box, he discovers a power that will change his life. A silver plate promises to bring him and his wife out of poverty, but the true treasure lies in another artifact, a simple stone. Once he discovers the stone's powers, he must either tell the truth or forfeit it to the authorities, or let his greed corrupt it. So we're going to take a sneak peek behind this story and kind of delve into it a little bit and talk about it. And if you like this kind of thing, grab it. If you don't, grab it anyway and leave me a very nice rating on your choice of book distributed, whether it be Amazon, Kubo, Apple, Barnes & Noble, or whoever. And we'll see where we go from there. So this is a Christian Science fantasy short story.
So why this story?
It's a question that a lot of people ask themselves. They say, well, when I pass on, I want to be able to at least make some kind of impact on this world. However big or small that is. Maybe you have started a business that is employing a bunch of other people, or maybe you have had some heroic act that you did in your life, or maybe you wrote a memorable song that impacted the way that people feel and live and things like that. But that's only on kind of a surface level. You can dig it a little bit deeper and talk about the legacy of like leaving children, having children a whole new generation that you left behind you. And it seems to be more of a pull that women have than men, especially when women hit a certain age. And I'm not going to go into that too much right now, but it seems like there's that drive to want to have children. And having that legacy is even greater than the others. How far would you go to establish that legacy? How far would you go to it? We're going to be touching on Thursday morning. We're going to be looking at a question about is a childless woman better than a mother? This is a really big value question, and it's going to be a kind of controversial. The childless cat lady. We're going to be talking about that. Yes. Brother Eric is going to have some things to say about that. But these are really pertinent questions, especially tonight. We've got the presidential debate, and there were some things said by one of the candidates about childless cat women, and we're going to delve into that because that really hit a nerve. There was a lot of memes that are going around about that. So this short story kind of touches on that too a bit, because what if you want to leave a legacy behind, like children, and you can't? How far would you go? So,
well, let's go ahead and get back to that story specifically. So where did the story come from?
Well, it was originally a chapter in my first novel, The Healing Stone, soon to be released, but it kind of didn't fit. I had it several places, and it really wanted to be a story that was told, but it didn't fit the larger story. And this is background for what happened to the main character. The main character lives 500 years later. This is in the 1000s when this takes place. And in medieval Spain, by this peasant, and he comes across something of great value and has a huge impact on his life. and it influences his 5th great grandson down the line. And that great grandson then, I said 500 years. It's not. It's actually just 200 years. I'm sorry. It's a 5th great grandson.
5th great grandson. Okay. So how important is this to the actual story?
It's important as backstory. It's hugely important because the healing stone is a part of what goes on. It's the main point of that novel.
So is it required then for the actual?
I see what you're saying. No, it's not required reading for it, but it's like a prequel. It's a short little prequel that you can grab and go for.
I thought you were supposed to release the prequels after you release like 4 videos. 4 books, not 4 movies.
Yeah, well, that was.
Then go back in time.
I could, but I thought that this would be a good, just kind of grease.
You got to actually do it in chronological order. Okay, fine. Well, how historically accurate is it then?
Well, it takes place, like I said, in the 11th century in medieval Spain at a place called San Pedro de Arlanza Monastery in the Spanish Kingdom of Castile. And this is, so it's Middle Ages, or kind of a little bit earlier in the time. And this is like the Old West back then for that time, because the Visigoths had taken this land from the Romans. And then in 711 AD, and this would have been about 300 years before this took place in the story, the Moors invaded from the south and brought Islam with them into Iberia and pushed the Christian nations back all the way across the Pyrenees. There were some pockets in the north, but across the Pyrenees mountains into France. And Charles Martel of the Frankish kingdoms pushed them. There was a great battle that pushed them back. Had he not done that, I bet that France could have been today Muslim, just like during a large period of Spanish history, Spain was Muslim. So yeah, this all took place with this, and I try to make it as historically accurate as possible. So It's good stuff. So
now this is kind of the meat of this channel. How can this story be used for evangelism?
That is a good question. I think that you could narrow this. This would be a good story for those interested in medieval history, looking for, they like that kind of story, that this would be good for that. Because there's some questions that are asked in here that would be probably a good springboard for conversation, like what we often use or look for when we do our movie reviews. We look for this kind of thing. And this would be for anybody who want to be leaving a legacy so bad that they're willing to compromise on it. So I'm going to show you some images here from the book. I did kind of illustrate this with there's Juan and he's plowing the fields, discovers something. And here is the monastery and the monks and them discussing this outside. So I did illustrate this with the story as well. Being a short story, that'd be fun to put some of those in there. So you get those as well. So that's kind of fun. I'm going to take a look at.
So where is this available?
Oh, okay. It is available, like I said, pre-order right now. It's going to officially launch the 1st of next month, so November 1st. But you can pick it up now, and you can also get it, like I say, check out the link in here for this live stream. It's going to be for a limited time available to you guys to download and to check it out. And if you could, then leave a review on it when the book is released. That's the main idea. So all the major distributors, Amazon, like I mentioned before, Apple, Kobo, Diesel, Barnes & Noble, and a handful of others. That's all out there. Amazon's the big one, of course.
Yeah, Amazon's the only one I'm really familiar with on that list.
Okay, cool. And
there's a Diesel?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. It's not Vin Diesel. He's not doing it. So this is from Thomas Hall. He says, fantasy, not sci-fi. I suppose the only difference is the MacGuffins are magic or technology. Hey. That's a good question. Yeah, it actually is sci-fi, but if you read the book, it's going to look like fantasy. So I just went with it. I can't say anything more than that because that would give it away. But that's a good question. And there's really a kind of a fine line between science fiction and fantasy. Who is it? Oh, Asimov, I said I think he was the one who said any technology from any sufficiently advanced civilization would appear as magic to those that came before it. So this could be an example of that. And he also said, MacGuffin's still probably not spelling it right. It's okay. I pronounced it right for you. So I know what you're talking about there. So I just ended it off by saying anybody who wants to, this book could be for anybody wanting to leave a legacy so bad that they're willing to lie or cheat for it. So that was kind of the question that was given for the tagline for this book. Are you willing to lie or cheat so bad to be able to have a child? Do you want a child so badly that you're willing to lie or cheat to have a child? And most guys are like, I don't care. It's just like, whatever. I just want to live my life. We're living a very selfish society right now that just we want to tend to focus on ourselves so much. And children are a burden. They get in the way a lot if we do. Actually, they don't. I mean, they do, but it's worth it. It's like having a relationship with other people altogether. And people can betray you, people can cheat and lie and take advantage of you, but living by yourself all the time is really a dark path to go down. So I'm going to ask this as a question for this. We're going to look at the background of Juan and Maria for this. And these are the two main characters in this story. They're married. They've been married for a long time. And this isn't talked about too much in the book, but they were a young couple. Things were going really good for Juan. It was things were popping and happening for him. He got some good inheritance. Things were going well, and he gets her pregnant, and that changes his life. So he goes ahead and marries her. He gives up whatever he has as career-wise and stuff like that to marry her and to get things started. And not too long after that, she loses a baby, miscarriage. So now they're together. It's no problem. We'll have another child. They tried for decades and decades and decades, and she was not able to conceive, never able to have a child. And so then he is working as a peasant there in medieval Spain, basically working on the monastery grounds because he doesn't have land of his own. It's lease tenure. He's servicing their grounds. He gets produce back for it. He gets a cut, but he's an old man now, and he can't do things like he used to anymore. If he had a son, things would be different. The son would be able to be out there with him and help him with his labors, but they're getting on in age, and there's no chance that's going to happen. And he breaks his heart because he knows that Maria, his wife, really wanted to have a child. And so that's the setup for this story. And the question that's asked in the story then too is how far would they be willing to go to have that child? Would they be willing to cheat, steal, lie, do whatever they needed to do it? And then if you do, what are the consequences that you're going to have to pay for it? So taking a look at the chat again, Thomas said, he said, problem with setting stories in the past is the amount of research you have to put into it. Yeah, that's the thing with this. So I think you could say that I'm a historical science fiction writer. So you got to do background on history. I mean, you could fluff it off and not do that much, just a little bunch of hand waving, but I really like getting into it. It does make a difference. I think it really makes the story richer. It challenges you, the discovery that's there. If you ever have a chance to go to these locations, it's even better. And then put on top of that science fiction, which is a lot of world building that you have to do. Both of those give another added sense of difficulty in writing because there is extra distance between your character and your reader, that they're not as historically or culturally close to each other, so that you can't say, well, they just went out to McDonald's and they grabbed something. No, McDonald's didn't exist in the future, way, far in the future or way in the past. You don't have those common frames of reference that you can use. So you have to rely on other things. And that makes it more difficult too. Then we got Bunny in the Basement. I don't know if I've ever seen it before. Welcome. So do you have advice on writing an antagonist in a way that is compelling without glorifying evil? Oh, that's a very good question. So I guess I would say that it depends on what kind of evil that you're talking about. You can have something that's very mild evil, like you have two. It's a story about. It's a sports story. So you have two people running the race for the same. They're both looking for the same goal. One person might be willing to cheat for that, and that would be the antagonist, or maybe something else more mild, like even a hurricane being an antagonist, just a force of nature. But if you have somebody that's really evil, your antagonist, you don't necessarily have to make them evil. But if you do, that's tough. How dark do you go? How much do you show? The best antagonists, I believe, have a believable motive more than just, I want to take over the world and then force everybody to be one of my minions. That doesn't always work.
Well, I mean, we could even look at, the last movie we reviewed yesterday, Transformers 1.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that it glorified evil necessarily with the villains at all. I'd say they had two main villains, well, three. The alien overlords. Right. You had the first main villain, who's just a glory hog, which is all driven by glory. But I mean, it's not like it was saying this is the ideal. You want to be like, no, everyone didn't like the guy. Everyone thought he's a jerkwad. And then you have Megatron, which you obviously see go down the bad journey and be like, man, that's what you're doing is wrong. And it's very obvious it's wrong. I could see your perspective, but it's wrong.
Right.
So I wouldn't say those are necessarily glorifying evil. I guess it's a question of how much. I mean, if you were trying to do an anti-hero, I think it would be more of a struggle.
Yeah.
With that than a villain, because you can paint the villain as being absolutely evil, being ridiculously disgusting.
I think the other thing that you can do too is if your antagonist or one or more of your antagonists are showing an alternative to that, and then you show the consequences of both paths. This is the path that went the right way. This is the path that went the bad way. Then see what happened to each individual eventually. I think that would help last a little bit.
And it's very powerful storytelling. I'd say they did that with the Transformers 1.
Yeah.
And that was very well handled. And you definitely saw, okay. And it was just a slight decision. It was one, you could boil it down to one decision that one party did one way, one party did the other way. You can obviously see which one was the correct call to make. Yeah. But it shows you, shows the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if this is an anecdotal story, if it actually really happened or not, but I remember hearing about sailors at sea tossing a message in the bottle off, and they have two bottles. They toss them both off at the same time. One ends up on one part of the continent. One ends up on another part of the continent because of the twist and turns. You have that initial trajectory, but then it splits off after that. You can have characters, just a little bit of a difference.
And that can make long-term huge changes. Yeah.
Yeah. So Thomas, hopefully that answered your question. Thomas Hall said, sounds like Abraham and Sarah. Yeah, absolutely. How far you were able to go. And then Abraham, listening to his wife's advice, made a bad decision.
Yet was willing to compromise and not trust in the Lord where.
But you know what? You can see where he's coming from on this, because he is like, do I just let things happen like they are? Am I supposed to be a part of the process? And
no, you can definitely see humanity in that, and the mistakes of humanity to take control.
Yeah.
Take control. Not so much that he wanted to take over God's position, but he's like, man, God's not fulfilling this. I know God wouldn't be lying to me about this, so maybe it's supposed to be fulfilled in this other way that's convenient here to do. Maybe that's what he intended.
So much of our own lives, like, I don't even know. I mean, am I supposed to do a certain thing, and if I do, is it actually God's will that I do it, or am I just trying to force the situation? It's a really difficult thing to know.
Very fine line.
Although, he didn't have the law either. So, and there's a lot of, it's just like regular, take a concubine. It's an easy decision to make, right?
It was from the culture that he came from as well. So he had that rooted, although the angel was specific that it was his wife, Sarah, who was going to have the child.
That's true.
And he did not, he took it under his own power in order to fulfill
his own advisement, Ishmael. And then we saw the rest of the story today. See where everything came from there. So that conflict. He also mentions Bunny in the Basement, the actor from Passion of the Christ that played Jesus said, when playing the villain, you don't ask Satan what he's like. You ask God. Don't know if that helps. That's a really good analogy. And then commenting about what we were just saying about Sarah and Abraham. I think we've all done the same thing, helping God along.
But it ends up being, every time it ends up being false, it ends up being a mistake.
Yeah, but okay, like for me, starting a business, it's like, how much do I just go with the flow, and how much of it is I've got to plan and schedule and make things happen. I mean, we do know that, like the parable of the 7 virgins who did prepare ahead of time with their olive oil, that preparation is part of the plan of God, right?
No, yeah, definitely. There is that aspect of that. But whenever you have a direct say, hey, this is God's got this, he's going to take care of this. Definitely, if you have an angel,
right,
tell you directly, or Jesus himself,
yeah,
depending on how you look at it,
yeah,
tell you directly, hey, this is going to happen. You gotta kind of go out on a branch.
Yeah, she did not. His wife did not give him very good advice on that one either.
I do admit, though, I can see where he's coming from. He's very nervous about his heritage. He doesn't have anyone. He's got Lot going to inherit everything. And he's like, I want.
Yeah, he basically had a good sized business with it too, with the traveling caravan that he had going on there. So I'm going to take a quick look at some of the images of the. This is the monastery that's in the short story. It actually does exist.
So this is the physical, actual monastery.
Yes. So talking about trying to make it historically accurate. This monastery.
Even the diagrams of the rooms. Jeez.
This is San Pedro de Arlanza Monastery in Spain. It was near Burgos. It was at that point in the Spanish kingdom of Castile. I believe it was still Castile at the time. But so this does take place. It is historically accurate as far as that goes. And the other thing that was with that too is that you can't really look at, so it was Catholic area, but you can't look at Catholic theology and practices now, because in the 11th century, they were different. You had to do research to say, okay, did they do the sign of the cross then? Did they, how was the whole monastery set up? How did this guy Juan own land with these guys? And he set it up. So I did some research on there and pulled it out to try and make it accurate. And that same level goes into the novel that this actually kind of came out of with it too. So there is that. So this is the deeper question. Would you lie or cheat to have a child? And with Abraham and Sarah, there was a little bit of, I guess you could say, he was, be a little vulgar here, knocked up the concubine. Was that considered cheating? Even though his wife said,
I still consider it cheating.
Yeah, it was cheating, right? I mean, in the sexual.
Cheating in that way. Even though culturally in that area, it would not have been.
No, they would have totally accepted
because that would have been acceptable in that, and he would have been standard in his life that would have been common to do. And again, it's not like God came down and gave them, here's a book of laws that you have to follow.
Right.
So he really didn't have reference other than what God had already told him. And yes, that even violated what God did tell him, though.
Yeah. So. Yep. So it did. So that would have been cheating for it. And how far are we willing to go to do that as a question, not just for having a child, but any kind of other legacy, any kind of thing that we want to try to force things along. So you can download a free copy of the short story by clicking on the link in the description of this video and signing up for a newsletter. Also, if you know of anybody who likes this type of story, this would be good. We are trying to do this as a way to get back culture for Christians and to get the message of the gospel out in other ways that are not necessarily within the walls of the church, because you have some people that will say, I'm never going to go into a church. I'm never going to have anything to do with that. But they're willing to read a good book. Some of these can be subtle, like what you have with Lord of the Rings, some very subtle things there. So build up. So I do humbly ask that if you do get this, that you leave a rating for the book at Amazon or Apple, Goodreads, or whatever distributor you choose to use, or leave a rating on all of them. Wouldn't hurt. Coming up, we have another few episodes. Like I mentioned, we have the whole question of the childless cat lady.
The crazy cat lady.
Crazy cat lady. And
crazy cat lady.
Is that the one?
No, I think you picked up a different one. Crazy cat lady part 2.
I do like this one better. So we have that coming then next Tuesday. We're planning, this might shift around, but right now we're planning on doing 7 Christian scientists who changed the world.